Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 3, me, Ihsan, and then my two partners, Kang Agus and Teh Yulia, would like to deliver the presentations about two chapters, stages of test development and common test techniques. In the chapter of stages of test development will be delivered by me and Kang Agus, and then the chapter common test technique will be delivered by Teh Yulia. These two chapters are taken from the book entitled Testing for Language Teachers. Let's start. The chapter 7, Stages of Test Development. There are 10 stages in developing the tests. The first 5 stages will be delivered by me, and the rest 5 stages will be delivered by my partner, Kang Agus. So first thing first, in developing the tests, stating the problems, and at least there are 6 issues or 6 problems that you have to state. The first is the purpose, what kind of purpose of your test, and then the abilities are to be tested, and then the detail that the result must be, and then the accurate that the result must be, and then the important of the backwards, and then the constraints. So those problems at least should state first in developing your tests. The second stage is writing the specifications of the tests. In this stage, tells about the content, structures, timing, medium, and technique, and then criteria level of performance, and then the last is scoring procedures. Let's discuss one by one. Let's explain one by one. The content is considered about the operations. Scan text to locate specific informations, and then guess meaning of unknown words from context. And the next one tells about the content, tells about the type of the text. So decide about what types of the texts are going to be available in your tests. And then decide about the addresses of the text. They are native speakers of the same status and age, or they are native speakers university students, or they are non-native speakers. And then consider about length of the text, because in each test has different length of the text. Reading, listening, writing, speaking has different length of the text. Topic is consider about the topic that will be available in your text, in your test. And then make sure the test or the topic or the content is readability. And then tells about the contents, tells about the structural range. It refers to a list of structures which may occur in the text, or a list of structures which should be excluded, and then a general indications of range of structures. And tells about the content, tells about vocabulary range. What vocabulary are going to be selected for the certain testees, either children or adult. And consider about dialect, accent, and style. Dialect and accent that test takers are meant to understand, and then style can be formal, informal, or conversations. And the last one about the content, consider the speed processing, because each test has different speed processing. Reading test, listening test, writing test, and speaking test has different speed of processing. Next one, decide the structures, timing, medium, and technique. Test structures mean what sections will be tests have and what will be tested in each. And timing is decide how long the test will be taken. And then the medium, decide what medium are going to be used, either paper, pencil, tape, etc. And then decide the number of items in the test, and the number of the passage, and then technique, what kind of technique that will be used in measuring the tests or the skills. And tells about criteria level of performance. It tells about accuracy, appropriacy, range, flexibility. How accurate that the criteria level of performance, and then appropriacy. The use of language must be generally appropriate to functions, and then the range tells about a fair range of language must be available to the candidate. And then flexibility. The criteria level of performance must be flexible. And then size. The criteria level of performance tells about the size. This means the size must be capable of responding with more than short form answer where appropriate. And then the last is scoring procedures. So it should be clear of how they will achieve high reliability and validity of the test in scoring, and then what rating scale will be used, and then how many people will rate in each piece of work, and then what happened if 2 or more raters disagree about a piece of work. The next stage is writing and moderating item. Just consider the 3 things here: sampling, writing item, and moderating item. Sampling, just choose the choice have to be made, and then writing items, that the item should always be written in the specifications of mine, and then moderations means the scrutiny of proposed item by at least 2 colleges. The next stage is informal trialing of items on native speaker. Just consider 3 things here. Item which been through the process of moderation should be presented in the form of the test to a number of native speaker or more if possible. Number of native speakers 20 or more if possible. And then the native speaker should be similar to the people for whom the test is being developed in the terms of age, educations, and general background. And then the last thing is item that proved difficult for native speakers, almost certainly need revisions of replacements. So after trialing, after informal trialing, there will be revisions and replacement, whether it should be changed or it should be replaced. And the 5th stage is trialing of the test on a group of non-native speakers, similar to those for whom the test is intended. Just consider 3 things here. The moderations and informal trial on native speakers should be put together in into a test, and then problems in administrations and scoring are noted, and then the fault in the tests are discovered only after it has been administered to the target group. Okay, that's all from me. And then the next 5 stages will be delivered by my partner, Kang Agus. Time is yours.
All right, Kang Ihsan, thank you very much. So now we are coming to the 6th stage. So stage number 6 is analysis of results of trials. As it is mentioned by Kang Ihsan on stage 5, so we need to conduct some trials. So after the trial is done, so we will get the result. So we have to do something with the result, which is we have to analyze the result. So to analyze the result, there are 2 ways. First is statistical, second is qualitative, or you can just use both of them. Statistical, it reveals the qualities of the test as a whole and of individual items. Then on statistical, we can use survey or checklist. And the second one is qualitative. Qualitative, it examines the responses in order to discover misinterpretation and any indicators of faulty items. And for the qualitative, we can conduct interview or give the test takers open-ended questions. Once or when we find there are some misinterpretations and faulty items, then we can decide that we need to make necessary changes of the test. Then once the changes are done, then we can conduct another trial. So we have to make sure that the test is good enough to be published, right? And then stage number 8, that is uh, calibration of skills. Rating skills should be calibrated, especially for oral and written tests, since they are not multiple choice. And also they need really deep consideration. So we need the framework. We need rubrics to score the answers for oral and writing tasks. And then we collect samples of performance which cover the full range of the skills. Then we ask some experts to look at the samples and assign each of them to point on the relevant skill. And then the assigned samples will provide reference points for all future users of the skills. As we can see here, so we have a very common and familiar framework. It's called Common European Framework of References. So it tells us the proficiency level for English speakers. So there are basic, independence, proficient. So it starts from A1 to C2. And if we can see from this part, the IELTS multi-level test, so it show us the indicator of a level of the IELTS. So like if you got 4.0 on IELTS, then it indicates as a level B1 in CFR. So let's move to the next slide. This is some examples. If you get IELTS level 4 in speaking, then you will be assumed that you, in terms of fluency and coherence, you cannot respond without noticeable pauses. And you may speak slowly with frequent repetition and self-corrections. And then you link basic sentences, but with repetitious use of simple connectives and some breakdown in coherence. And then in terms of lexical resource, you are able to talk about familiar topics, but can only convey basic meaning on unfamiliar topics and makes frequent errors in word choice. And then you really attempt paraphrase. And then in terms of grammatical range and accuracy, you produce basic sentence forms and some correct simple sentences, but subordinate structures are rare. And your errors are frequent and may lead to misunderstanding. And then in terms of pronunciation, you use a limited range of pronunciation features. You attempt to control features, but lapses are frequent. And your lapses are frequent. And then mispronunciation are frequent spoken by you, and they cause some difficulty for the listeners. So that's the interpretation of a level or a score, right? And then the next stage is validation, stage number 8. The final version of the test can be validated. As we know that there are two types of tests. First is high-stake tests and low-stake tests. High-stake tests such as IELTS, TOEFL, IBT, TOEFL, TOEIC, and a national exam, and many more. So high stakes are used worldwide or for national, and they are published. But for low stake tasks, usually are usually used in a school. For example, like teachers make some quizzes or tests or exam for the students, and the school the school makes school exam specific for them. So they make their own task for their institution only. So it is essential for high stakes tasks to do this stage validation, but for low stakes tasks it's not that necessary. But yeah, you can do some research, but that's not really important, right? Okay, and then stage number 9 is as of if we want to develop the test, then we have to consider this one. We need to write handbooks for test takers, test users, and staff. Test takers are people who are willing to do your task. Test users are people who will use your task for certain for their for their purposes, any purposes they want to do, such as companies who want to do the test for selecting their new employees, or for promoting their current employees, or for uh, entering schools, for example. So they are called as a test users, and staff are people who are working together with us to handle this task. It could be interviewer, people who do the interview with the test takers for a speaking test, or scoring, or rating, or item creator, or IT people who develop the platform to well, if we want to make the test online or computer based, or it could be supervisor or proctor. So, yeah, so we have to make the handbooks as well. Then these are the following points or items that we need to uh, put in the book. So the book are expectedly containing this part. First is the rationale for the task. So we have to mention what the rationale of the test is. And then second one is an account of how the test was developed and validated. And the third is the description of the test. So briefly, we tell the reader of the test, or the people who want to do the test. So brief descriptions about the test. It could be the length of the test, the type of the skills are tested, the skills that are tested, and then the scoring system, and anything else, right? Anything else that you can put there, as long as it's test descriptions. And then you need also put the samples. For example, you two questions from your listening task, two questions from your reading task, two questions from your writing task, or from your two questions from your speaking task, right? Or reading task, right? So you have to provide some samples. So a test taker who wants to do your task will see what the test is like. And then you need to provide some advices on preparing for taking the test, and then some explanation of how test scores are to be interpreted. So for example, if the test taker gets 100 points, so how can they read the score? I mean, like what kind of English speaker they are, so how to interpret the score. And then for the staff, you can input some pages for training materials. And then next is detail of the test administration. It could be like the registration, or the admission, or the the price, if you think it is necessary. That's also okay for test administration. Right, and then we go to the next slide. This is the examples of a handbook. It's a TOEFL ITP's handbook of the test taker, and it's published by the ETS, Educational Testing Service. So as we can see here in the content page, so it provides first there is important note, and then the general information of the test, and then tell the test taker what to prepare before the test and during the test, and then how to complete the answer sheet by providing an example of somebody's answer sheet, and then what to bring to the test center, So could be the stationery, or could be ID card, or anything that you want the test taker bring to the test center. And then test center procedures and regulation. So as we know that all tests should have rules and regulation or procedures. So we have to tell them in advance through this handbook, so what they need to prepare. If it is online, so they may need to install something on the computer, or maybe they cannot. If it is offline, they cannot go to the test center by like wearing casual dress, for example, or they don't put their shoes on. So only people who are wearing shoes who can enter the testing room. So it can be anything, right? And then identification. So you tell the ID documents requirements, and then what ID that are accepted or what ID that are not accepted, and then dismissal from test center. So you can tell what like there is a punishment that they have to leave the test room if they do some cheatings or some impropriate sorry not appropriate action during the test, inappropriate action during the test, or unruly action in the testing room, right? And then sample answer sheet, and then some practice questions. They provide 2 practice questions, and then the answer space for practice questions, and the score report and how to understand the score, and then the policy and guidelines, and also the test questions inquiries, and how to complete your admission form, and the answer key for the practice questions. And if your test will be used worldwide, so you need to attach country region codes and native language codes. And then the last one is the admission form, right? Okay, and then the last stage for test development is training staff. So of course, after we make the handbook, which is contained by the materials for the training, so the handbook can be used to train your staff, and also you can use other materials. And then you need to train all staff that are going to be involved in the test process, such as interviewers, raters, scorers, computer operators, and invigilators, or such as supervisors and proctors. All right, so basically those are important 10 stages that we need to consider if we want to develop a task. This is your choice and your decision of developing tasks. What kind of task do you want to develop? High stakes task or low stakes task? If high stake task, then you probably need to follow these stages. Okay, thank you very much. I think those the presentation. Those all the presentation that Kang Ihsan and I discuss in this chapter about 10 stages of test development. And the next chapter will be presented by our friend, Miss Yulia. Miss Yulia, please, you may start your part. Thank you.
Alright, it's my turn to deliver the 8 chapters material about common test techniques. Start from the definitions of test techniques. The first definition is stated by Hughes in 2003, eliciting behavior from candidates that will tell us about their language abilities. The second definition is stated by Brown in 2000, a method of measuring a person's ability, knowledge, or performance in given domain. This chapter also introduces common techniques that can be used to to test a variety of abilities, including writing, reading, listening, grammar, and vocabulary. There are 4 common test techniques in this chapter. The first is multiple choice, the second is yes or no, and true or false items, the third is short answer items, and the last one is gap filling items. The first is multiple choice. The advantages of multiple choice techniques were so highly regarded at one time that scoring can be perfectly reliable. Scoring also should be rapid and economical. While many laymen have always been skeptical of what could be achieved through multiple choice testing, it is recently said that the technique's limitations have been generally recognized by professional testers. Here are the difficulties with multiple choice items. The first is the techniques test only recognition knowledge. If there is a lack of fit between candidates' productive and receptive skills, then the performance on a multiple choice test may give a quite inaccurate picture of their ability. A grammar test score, for example, may show a poor indicator of someone's ability to use grammatical structures. The person who can identify the correct response in the item above may not be able to produce the correct form when they are speaking or writing. The second is guessing may have a considerable but unknowable effect on test scores. We assume that the guessing answer could be correct or incorrect in a certain chance. In making the multiple choice question, it is better to provide 4 options in order to reduce the effort of guessing. It is also important to all distractors should be chosen by a significant number of the test takers who don't have knowledge or ability of being tested. If there are 4 options, a very small proportions of candidates choose one of the distractors. The item is effectively only a 3-option item. The third is the technique severely restricts what can be tested. The basic problem here is that the multiple choice items require distractors, and those are not always available. In a grammar test, it may not be possible to find 3 or 4 possible alternatives to the correct structure. The result is often that the command of what may be an important structure is simply not tested. The fourth is, it is very difficult to write successful items. The further problem with the multiple choice is that even the items are possible, good ones are extremely difficult to write. The amount of work and expertise needed to prepare good multiple choice, even they got obstacle with the technique of formulating questions. The fifth is the backwash may be harmful. Practice at multiple choice items is not usually be the best way for students to improve their command of a language. There is a danger that practice for the test will have a harmful effect on learning and teaching. And the last one is cheating may be facilitated. The fact that the response on a multiple choice test are so simple that makes the test takers easy to communicate to the others verbally. Here are the examples of the multiple choice questions. There is a stem and a number of options. One of the options is correct, the others become distractors. And this is another example from the reading test. The number 2 is yes or no and true or false items. The items in which the test taker has merely to choose between yes or no and between true and false. This item is sometimes modified by requiring test takers to provide a reason for their choice. The weakness of such items is that the test takers has 50% chance of choosing the correct response by chance alone. Here is the examples of the questions from true or false. And the third is short answer items. The items in which test taker has to provide a short answer, and it's particularly in listening and reading test. There are advantages and disadvantages of using the short answer item. The first advantage is guessing where will or should contribute to test scores. The second is the technique is not restricted by the need for distractors. The third is cheating is more likely to be difficult. And the last one, items should be easier to write. And the disadvantages of using short answer. The first is responses may take longer and reduce the possible number of items. The test taker has to produce language in order to respond. The scoring may be invalid or unreliable. And the last one is scoring may take longer. Here is the example from the IELTS writing test. And the fourth is gap filling items. The items in which test takers have to fill the gap with a word are also common. Gap filling is a valuable technique. It has the advantages of the short answer technique, but the greater control exercises over the test takers. When the gap filling technique is used, it's essential that the test takers are told very clearly and firmly that only one word can be put in each gap. Here are the examples from the question from the gap filling. The type of the question here is grammar test. And the last, thank you for listening to our presentation. That's all from me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.